Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Southcom has canceled Christmas and Thanksgiving. Well, not literally, but they're telling troops, you better stick around and not go anywhere. Why? What happens in the past when we look at similar scenarios and steps? Does this lead to conflict? Does this lead to war? Well, I've got information that is literally hot off the press. Check this out. Christmas canceled for U.S. troops surrounding Venezuela. The Telegraph. Latin Times. U.S. forces stationed near Venezuela restrict leave in upcoming days. Christmas canceled for U.S. troops surrounding Venezuela. Yahoo, The Hill, read all about it. So what is going on? So this is what I can confirm. Multiple OSINT and regional trackers report that U.S. Southern Command is restricting or limiting leave over Thanksgiving and Christmas for forces tied to the Venezuela theater. The wording in what we can see is restricting, limiting leave. This isn't an official public memo saying all leave is canceled, but functionally, it does indicate a higher than normal alert posture for that period. Also, FAA alert, airlines suspending flights. 6 different companies right now have restricted flights. There's GPS jamming going on in the area right now as well. And the Cartel de los Sols, you probably heard about this the other day, the U.S. State Department has formally designated Cartel de los Sols as a foreign terrorist organization. This is effective today, and it's now listed on the official FTO list. The Federal Register notice confirms the legal step and effective date. You can read about this Federal Register. Reporting notes that this cartel is really a network of senior Venezuelan military and government figures tied to narco trafficking and corruption, basically a state-linked criminal structure. Now, I found a post today from GLP. I don't know if you ever go on the website. They have some great news sometimes and some completely crazy news sometimes. It's an eclectic group of people. Sometimes you get some great information and you just got to really shift through it. But listen to this post that I found on GLP. And I did some research to find out how much of this I can confirm, and we are confirming the majority of this. The Trump administration just designated Venezuela's cartel. Oh, let me start over. In the last 48 hours, the U.S. basically flipped the switch that always comes right before a war. And GLP is acting like it's just another Monday. GLP stands for Godlike Productions, if you didn't know. Southern Command literally canceled Thanksgiving and Christmas leave for troops. That does not happen unless something major is about to go down. Ask any vet here. That only happens before boots move or missiles fly. 6 airlines just suspended flights into Venezuela after the FAA issued an alert about heightened military activity. That's the same thing that happened right before Russia invaded Ukraine and before the U.S. hit Libya. The Trump administration just designated Venezuela's Cartel de los Sols as a foreign terrorist organization. That means the U.S. now has legal authority to strike Venezuelan military targets without declaring war. This is the legal trigger they used before Afghanistan and Syria, according to the report, according to this post. This isn't some rumor. It's an official mechanism they always use before the first strike. Well, I don't know about always, but often. Meanwhile, 30% of U.S. deployable naval power is sitting in the Caribbean with Tomahawks loaded and Marines staged in Puerto Rico. Interesting. Well, let's look at the news. Let's look at what we can verify right now. Check this out. Latin Times, The Telegraph, Christmas canceled for U.S. troops surrounding Venezuela. This is from ArmyRecognition.com. Flash info, 25% of U.S. Navy's deployed warships now in Caribbean as Ford Carrier Group leads the force. A U.S. television network reported that about 25% of all deployed U.S. Navy warships are now positioned in the Caribbean Sea. Centered on the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, the buildup marks a sharpened U.S. response to tensions with Venezuela and efforts to pressure criminal networks tied to Maduro's government. The U.S. has launched one of its most significant recent maritime buildups concentrating about a quarter of the deployed surface fleet, including the USS Gerald Ford Carrier Strike Group in the Caribbean Sea. This move clearly signals a heightened U.S. response to intensifying tensions with Venezuela and a reinforced effort to counter criminal networks linked to the Maduro government. As reported by a leading U.S. network senior official, view the deployment as central to the Trump administration's strategy, which aims to disrupt cartel operations believed by Washington to be entwined with the Venezuelan state. Interesting. Now, airlines, this is confirmed. 6 airlines have canceled flights in Venezuela after FAA warns of dangers from heightened military activity. CBS News, ABC News, airline cancel flights to Venezuela. And then check this out. This is from Resilient Navigation and Timing Foundation. The GNSS interference near and in Venezuela, FAA warning. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration issued an advisory yesterday about worsening security situations and heightened military activity in or around Venezuela. Not mentioned in the advisory, but cited by many media outlets, is that detected interference with GPS in the area has been increased significantly since September. High levels of GPS interference are often associated with military conflict zones. Degraded GPS has been associated with aviation and maritime accidents. And much of the interference seems to be coming offshore from Venezuela. Most recently, it seems to be coming from the ocean near Trinidad and Tobago, where U.S. Navy ships are said to be operating. GPS-wise, it looks like the warning should be for Trinidad and Tobago. GPS jamming and spoofing can be protective measures. After an attack on Venezuelan President Maduro by 2 explosives-laden drones in 2018, Moscow began spoofing GPS in the vicinity of the Kremlin and other locations to deter surveillance and attack by drone on Russian officials. Interesting. And to add to this, I'm going to do a separate report on this, but Dutch military has opened fire at drones over the Volkel Air Base. Yeah, they tried to shoot them down, and guess what? They couldn't. They got away. That's very interesting. The military shoots at these drones. The drones disappear. They don't get any of them. That tells me that's some high technology or there's some pretty bad aims. Now, I want to go back to this real quick because when we look at the current situation with the naval and marine buildup in the Caribbean, we've got, as of late October, mid-November, estimates put 10 to 15,000 personnel in the Southern Caribbean and Puerto Rico, including Marines and Special Operations units, with some based in Puerto Rico and some afloat. Experts quoted in those pieces say that level is insufficient for a full-scale invasion, though, but very adequate for limited strikes and raids. Reuters also documented the U.S. upgrading an old Cold War base in the Caribbean as a staging ground near Venezuela, which fits a more serious contingency posture. Now, the U.S. has already carried out deadly airstrikes on suspected drug boats in the broader campaign. Media count 80 plus killed since September, and the UN has raised concerns about extrajudicial executions. So we're already in the low-level shooting phase, framed as war on drugs, not declared interstate war. Also, Southcom, if you're not familiar with Southcom, I mean, you probably are, but Southcom, just in case you didn't know, is one of the 11 unified combatant commands of the U.S. Department of Defense. It is the U.S. military command responsible for Latin America, the Caribbean, and the surrounding waters, including the approaches to Venezuela, Cuba, Colombia, the Panama Canal, and much of the Caribbean Sea. Interesting, the Panama Canal. Remember several months ago when we said, we're taking the Panama Canal back and we're booting China out of here? And then things seemed to be going the U.S.'s way. And then China said, wait a second. And then people kind of forgot about that. We need to get back into what's going on out there in the Panama Canal right now as well. So as of the 28th of October, we've got 10,000 troops approximately in the Southern Caribbean and Puerto Rico region. Another source says that buildup has grown and now takes the number of U.S. troops in the region to about 15,000, which includes the arrival of USS Gerald R. Ford. A more conservative estimate More than 6,000 sailors and Marines now operating in the region, and based on confirmed ship and asset postings, though this doesn't include all ground units. There are also U.S. warships, including destroyers, cruisers, a nuclear submarine in the Caribbean. Could this go nuclear? How much is Russia going to get involved, and China? This could be great for Russia and China to build up Venezuela in attempts to weaken the U.S. military. Kind of like Ukraine and Russia and NATO funding Ukraine as through various means and measures. So publicly verifiable, we've got between 10 and 15,000 U.S. forces, troops, air, sea assets combined in and around the Caribbean near Venezuela. So Venezuela's response, and they made this response about a week and a half ago, announced a massive deployment of its forces, like 200,000 troops, actually. The Venezuelan defense minister stated the country is preparing for guerrilla-style resistance in an event of U.S. attack, acknowledging limitations in conventional capacity. Maduro has publicly framed the U.S. presence as a threat to Venezuelan sovereignty, declaring maximum preparedness for defense. Venezuela's mobilization is reported to involve 200,000 troops. This includes branches of the military and militias in what they describe as a readiness posture. In addition to military mobilization, Venezuela has taken diplomatic propaganda steps condemning U.S. movements, rallying national unity, invoking imperialist aggression narratives, and Maduro even saying a couple of lines from Imagine. Imagine all the people. Sorry, I won't do that again. However, let's think about this, because 10 to 15,000 troops, if they've only got 10 to 15,000 troops out there right now, I do not see more than special operations taking place. I do not see a ground invasion with 15,000 troops. Now, there's no credible open source showing the U.S. has positioned invasion-size forces. That's 50,000 or more, approximately, for Venezuela. Analysts note current U.S. posture is consistent with limited strike pressure operations rather than full conquest. Now, 200,000 troops mobilized by Venezuela, verifying actual readiness, equipment quality, and logistics is harder to confirm all of that. That's just what we have been told in the media. Mobilization does not mean immediate war. Both sides still publicly frame actions as defensive or counter narcotics and sovereignty defense. So the next few weeks are going to be very critical, especially now that Thanksgiving and Christmas are essentially canceled for troops. Like, they don't want troops leaving unless it's extreme circumstances. So we're going to find out. But I did a deep analysis. I did a really deep search as to why this is going on. Now, we know the official story, right? We know the official story. They're saying the official story is counter narcotics operations and threats posed by the Cartel de los Soles terrorist organization, which is now a terrorist organization, which could have a multitude of ties through the Venezuelan military. And it is also a narco-terrorist group, the U.S. claims, embedded inside Venezuela's government and military. The narrative is identical to past pre-intervention language, Panama, Afghanistan, and Syria. So it is historically consistent with the run-up to limited strikes. Afghanistan, the Taliban, they called them narco-terrorists. Syria, the ISIS networks. Panama, Norwegia. Now, these are some of the unofficial and speculative reasons which have been allegedly leaked or widely discussed. First one, to prevent Russian and Chinese military expansion. Venezuela has invited Russian advisors, Iranian Quds Force trainers, and Chinese cybersecurity units. Some claim U.S. intel believes Russian S-300 crews are operating inside Venezuela. The second unofficial reason, speculative, is to protect Colombian border and prevent spillover. Colombia is a U.S. ally and heavily destabilized by Venezuelan gangs and militias. The third would be to seize or neutralize Iranian missile shipments. Repeated intelligence hints at Iranian precision guided weapons, possible cruise missiles, drone technology moving through Venezuela. The number 4 would be to stop narco gold smuggling tied to Hezbollah. This is a big one in intelligence circles. Venezuelan generals, narco networks, Hezbollah financing reported through DEA channels for years. And then also number 5 would be the massive oil play. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world, a regime unable to extract it, U.S. refiners desperate for heavy crude feedstocks, and geopolitical realists say the U.S. wants to reset Venezuela to stabilize global energy. So those are some of the speculative reasons, unofficial. Now let's get into some of the deep state speculation or the conspiracies that are being talked about. A planned quick strike war before the 2026 election. The U.S. leadership wants a victory war to boost political standing. Number 2, the U.S. recovering secret tech weapons hidden in Venezuela. Some OSINT chatter claims Iran has basing rights. Potential Russian hypersonic research is being tested in Venezuela, and Venezuela has underground Quito tunnels used for weapons or cyber operations. Did I say that right? Quito tunnels? Now, none of this is confirmed, so this is all deep state speculation and conspiracy right now. Also, gold, crypto, and black budget financing. Some claim Cartel de los Soles controls massive gold mines, crypto laundering hubs, shadow banking networks used by global elites. So the FTO designation would allow the U.S. to seize international assets. Humanitarian crisis cover story. Some analysts believe the U.S. wants to forcibly deliver humanitarian aid as an excuse to enter strategic zones. Preparation for larger conflict with China and Russia. Turning Venezuela into a pro-U.S. state would eliminate Russia's only Western Hemisphere ally. That's a big deal. Block China's port access, another huge deal, and secure mineral oil fields. All 3 absolutely big deals. Some believe this is phase 1 of a broader Cold War II ring fence strategy. So, bottom line, huge military buildup, yet not quite big enough for a ground invasion publicly. Leaving restrictions are not normal, or these restrictions are not normal unless expecting possible operations. The FTO designation is a major legal trigger. Venezuela is mobilizing on a scale that indicates they believe a strike is possible. U.S. force levels are consistent with limited strikes, not invasion. The internet hype that war is 100% guaranteed in 10 days is absolutely speculation. We can't confirm that there's going to be a war in 10 days. Probably not. At least publicly, and public data doesn't show the resources for a full invasion. So the most realistic scenarios right now are limited U.S. strikes against the Cartel de los Soles leadership, air defense assets, missile sites, IRGC-linked units, narco-terrorist targets, followed by intense diplomatic pressure on Maduro. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is just a quick update on today's breaking headlines. And we have many more. So hopefully you'll join us over on Patreon and Rumble. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching on YouTube. Please hit the bell for all notifications and check back daily for new content. We upload at least 1 or 2 podcasts almost every day. And we're also doing the same on our Rumble page. We've got exclusive content on our Patreon page. But one of the things I was going to say is in a little bit here, I'm going to go live on Rumble and we're going to do like a 2-hour newscast with a plethora of news that is hot off the press, very important information that you need to hear about. So please subscribe to our Rumble page and leave a comment over there if you would as well. And I really appreciate you all very much. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Be excellent to each other and be the change you want to see. Thank you. And live long and prosper. Oh, wait, I got to do it like this. Live long and prosper. Double live long and prosper. Squared. I'm a dork, but that's okay.